the NFT, I mean, today, if I talk about that, it's of no use. Why? Because people just try to do a experiment. I mean, who wants a monkey face of $1 million? What are you going to do it with, right? But if I say I give you a piece of song which is sung by Lata Mangeshkar, and it always will be by your name, I mean, that's what I want to keep. Or if I say that, I want to give you an outfit which Amitabh Bachchan wore on this day of this movie, that is what.
So really what you're thinking is doing physical and digital along with that.
That's where the real use of NFT and crypto will come in place. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Right. Okay, I think that's fair. But let's just move to Krishnan, right? Talk to me a little bit about Loka. What are you really doing at Loka?
Great. So Loka's more like not a passion project, but more like a project out of love. I was growing up, and one of my favorite games while growing up was this game called GTA Punjab. And this is where it was an Indian version of a mod of GTA where there used to be a Sardarji who, if you stole his taxi, he would run behind you and give you abuses in Punjabi or Hindi. And that is the first time I realized.
So did you understand this explicit being a South Indian?
No, I'm a third generation Delhiite. So yeah, well aware of every such word. Yeah. So while I was experiencing that, I realized one thing, which is the power of localization. And when you combine that with gaming and interaction, that just explodes and makes something magical. So we started this journey of creating a metaverse that's based out of India, an Indianization, where we said that the characters, the NPCs or bots will not be called John or Robert. They'll be called Rahul. They will dance at Dabang songs. They will do Hrithik Roshan hook steps. They will there will be music that is out of Bollywood. There will be events like we did a K-pop concert with Boat August 2020, where Rashmika Mandana came. Some Indian influencers also came. So we built a platform, a metaverse, an interactive game-like platform based out of India and Indianization. So that is what Loka is.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit about, you're doing this entire transportation of the real world into the metaverse, right? What is really, your big challenge around this?
See, I was just talking to a gentleman here, and I believe that's the biggest challenge of any metaverse, which is metaverse is constantly competing with reality. And currently, we can reality is what you sense out of 5 senses. Metaverse is currently what you sense out of 2 senses, which is your eyes and your ears. But when we get to the 5th sense, reality will be overrated. And we're fighting that war. And coming back to your question, I think currently metaverse is probably prevalent in all streams. If you look at, let's say, B2C, you can go to a mall, shop for stuff. You can actually drive a car with actual physics of, let's say, a Scorpio and have the same turning radius, same acceleration, and feel what is it to test drive a Scorpio before buying it at home.
Understood.
And do a lot
and
more.
And any NFT crypto element to your work?
So we are, as a company, we are right in between. We call ourselves a Web 2.5 company.
That's the first I've heard.
We want to be more like, let's say, a Roblox or a Fortnite than Decentraland or a Sandbox.
Nice. Hey, Kapil, right? Let me go to you, and then I'll come back to Gaurav, and then we go to Ayush, right? So you have a lot of experience around building gaming studios, right? Talk to me a little bit about, how are you defining Web3? What do you think is big in gaming and Web3 and Metaverse? And what are you really doing with it?
Right. So how I see Web3, the typical what we have heard the most, Web 1 was more static, Web 2 was more interactive. Web 3 gives you the power to own your data. Like you have a digital identity which you can really scale up and monetize, let's say. Earlier, whatever time we would spend on the internet, whatever assets we will create will just stay there, and some centralized company will have the power to monetize it. In Web 3, we get that power, very simply put. That's how I see the whole Web 3 revolution at the most base of it. Classic example, like you mentioned, is we are seeing in the gaming industry. What has happened with the gamers is earlier, like we are all, I think we have played a lot of video games since our childhood. Earlier, we'll spend a lot of time, play the games, have fun, done with it, right? Now, I can actually have my player mature, grow. The assets, I can build around it. I can own them. I can train them, trade them. I can monetize from it. I can actually eventually make money from spending my time on the internet, from spending time on games. Plus married with, of course, the whole creators economy where you can eventually become a developer and like tons of other things that we can talk about. So in essence, that's how the whole shift has started happening from being just sitting on the other side of table and experiencing what's happening while somebody else is making money off your talent or of the time that you're spending on the internet. Now you become the owner and you get to decide what you want to do with your data, with your time, and how you're kind of monetizing it.
No, participative ownership is really the key,
Yeah,
and I was talking about it on the platform that we're building for women. That's really the crux of it. How do you think is education going around this? So while the gamers will be easy to adopt and easy to accept, at a larger spectrum of internet users, I can see you're a consultant and you've worked a lot around building projects and consulting for projects. Tell me, where do you see the role of education and how far out is real participative ownership in the internet?
So see, when we talk about education, there are two aspects of it. One is how the enterprises are seeing using education or using metaverse or gaming as a tool to educate the community at large. And second is the education that the community needs itself, right? These are the two important aspects. One, let's call it like the solution or like a metaverse as a tool to educate around. Or the second one is like as a community, what we just kind of need to keep upgrading ourselves, right? There's a lot of business which is happening around on the enterprise side of things using metaverse to spread education, right? In the enterprise metaverse, I think one of the biggest use cases is trainings.
I was talking about educating the user about participative ownership, the use of tokens, the use of NFTs, and so on and so forth.
Okay, I stand corrected. There, that is where we are seeing the role of communities becoming really relevant, right? So the community, if we talk about some stats, right? The total number of gamers across the globe is around 3 billion. This includes the entire gaming this thing. But in Web3, I think the total number of gamers are around 100 million. That's it. If you see, the number is really large. Number is comparatively very small. But for Web3 games to become successful, you don't need a large amount of users any which way. A Web3 game can become successful with just 10,000 users, where on the other hand, a Web2 game would need 1 million of users. Why is this important? Because these 10,000 users, if they are well educated, to your point, if they know how to use the tokenomics, if they know how to transact, if they know how to make good of their assets, they make the game successful. And their interaction with the ecosystem, the more they are educated, the more they are involved in the whole ecosystem, the more it makes sense for them.
Correct. And really growth becomes through referral, and that's where you start rewarding them too.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, so Gaurav, you're the one who's really taking this entire NFT piece into sports, right?
The sports part of it.
Very interesting, because I think we've seen a lot of investment happen in India around sports collectibles and across the world, and starting from Messi to everybody else is involved in NFTs and token gating for communities around sports. So talk to us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I'm Gaurav, and I'm associated with two projects. One is my dream project, of course, sports. In the past, I worked almost for 17 years with sports IPs, but that's for the mobile IPs. For say Formula One, say MotoGP, and 17 years back, we all were very excited about the small screen, the mobile screen. How you monetize content there was very different and new those days, and it was a new channel altogether. Now with Metaverse coming in, these IPs, they need to be present there. And speaking to all these guys, these IPs, we have realized there's a huge gap with, Gen Z, potential, people involving with these IPs are getting lesser by lesser. Millennials are into sports in a big way, and the disconnect is there, and the trench is getting deeper. And it's a really big concern for all the global IPs, be it New Zealand cricket team, be it Australian cricket team, be it the WWEs, and the smaller IPs, including people like Lucha Libre and the smaller IPs. I think Web3 gamifies the whole experience, gets yourself, the user more, the fan rather, more involved. And the DAOs and, I'll give an example, live example. There's a team of a soccer team called Rugby United. And that's a part of a soccer team, which is, I think, in south of Sussex, England. And they had released a DAO. And, people could, purchase those NFTs and get involved in the decision making. And they had a goal fixed that they will be in the, say, Premium League in the coming next 2 years. They'll be ready for that league. And so the involvement was big. It is not to be seen in Web 2 and even social, that kind of involvement with a sports, IP. So that's one part of what I've been doing. And the second part is I'm also advising at a big, huge, humongous mega project which is coming up in this part of the world, which is called as Mayaverse. And it's a mega project in terms of it's not a metaverse, but it integrates smaller metaverses into that mega metaverse. And it has forward and backward integration both. They're trying to take out a headset, and the big roadblock now is the headset becoming very expensive. They're trying to take out a headset which is like $50 to $100 only. And backward integration in terms of the blockchain. The blockchain is what they call Kalptantra, and Kalptantra is the first hybrid GBPA compliant blockchain. So that blockchain is powering the platform. So beautifully falling in place, both of it together. But yeah, very different of what I'm doing in both the things. But yeah, sports is what I primarily do.
Nice. I think, you've got your hands into many things, and I can see that you've also done enough research around what are the possibilities in scale and size. And I think with India, I mean, obviously clubs in the US and clubs in the UK are doing this very actively. But I think in India, when it comes to clubs around the IPL and around ISL and things like that, they could really explode this entire thing. And I can see Dream 11 has invested in many such companies who are building out an entire portfolio of sports collectibles. Ayush, you're doing something really different, right? I think there aren't many Web3 use cases like what you're doing. Video and video calling in Web3. When I was reading what you're doing, I was fairly amazed, right? I come from a video background, and I know how hard it is to transmit video. We've tried to doing a lot of peer-to-peer work around video, and I can see that you're possibly going into that direction. But I'll leave you to talk to us a little bit about Huddle and what you're building and how you're building it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the journey is pretty interesting because we participated in a hackathon called ETH Global Hackafest 2020. That's where it started. Where the idea was pretty simple. It was a 30-day hackathon, and what we saw was that everybody is talking about decentralization, Web 3.0, but all their meetings, all the conferences, all the hackathons, everything was happening via Zoom, Teams, or Google Meet. Now the problem while using all these Web 2 platforms are that the calls which we do, as Tarun was also mentioning, these are not peer-to-peer in nature. By this what I mean is that, let's suppose I and Tarun are doing a call. That call is routed through a central server, which is based in a server generally in North Virginia. So your all the data routes all the way from India to North Virginia and then comes back. This was the time of COVID, and my nephew, Naman, he is in Bihar right now, and he's in 6th class. And he didn't have a good internet connection because he was living in a village. And he had to now forced to live at home because of COVID. And what happened was that he has to use Zoom in tandem with WhatsApp because the latency was so high because all your data packets were routing through a central server in US, which made no sense. And he has to ask his friends that, hey, what did the teacher say right now? And that rote learning happened for 2 years. And that is such a big problem if you just think about it. So that's something which we saw that, hey, if we need to do a call, a video call, why not use not a central server, but computer which is in your own. Let's suppose I'm doing a call from India, in Bangalore. If somebody has a good laptop in Bangalore, he can be the one who can power those calls rather than sending those calls to a central server in US. So that's the first layer. The second is that all these calls in terms of privacy, the calls are not, they are transport encrypted, but not content encrypted. But by that what I mean is that your calls can still be decrypted by servers. They can see your data. They can see what kinds of call you have done. And that's the reason why a couple of these players in 2020 faced a class action lawsuit They had to pay multi-million-dollar fine for that. The second is that in terms of your recordings, which we do, these are intellectual property rights, like, proper, be it all the government agencies, be it all these healthcare, education, everyone, they want to have an encrypted recordings of your data. That's where we use something called as Filecoin, where all your calls get recorded and stored over Filecoin. That means your calls are completely encrypted, secured, and you have those keys of the data. That means no one else can see what's behind that recording, barring you. And then comes the layer of like proper engagement where we don't need to authenticate yourselves. That's the mental model shift. Like right now when we use Google Meet or Zoom, we need to sign in via Google. Now it looks very simple in nature, but it captures your data in such a manner. It captures your name, your IP, your parents' name, your email ID, everything. The alternative to that is sign in via your own wallet, something like a Paytm wallet. It's called MetaMask wallet. There are other wallets as well. So you can just sign via your wallet and you own your identity. No one else can basically own that identity, and you basically sign in a different format, and it has much more power as compared to normal. So that's how Huddle01 works. You type huddle01.com, do a meeting like Google Meet and Zoom, and bam, you're done. You are entering the meeting into a good call.
Very nice. And what's the scale currently?
So we can do a call up to 400 people at once.
Wow.
So that's the call. We have a 1080 quality, so we have a better quality. If you use, you look better if you use Huddle01.
And have you got token gating for it?
Yeah, we also have token gating for it. So let's suppose if IAMAI has a NFT right now, all the people who are attending this room, they can attend this call by doing a proper NFT gated meeting.
Right, I'm going to get the team to shift to it, right? We've all got to be together in this Web3 revolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
But very good stuff. Let me come back to you, Krishnan, right? You spoke a little bit about offline entertainment marrying, online entertainment. Talk to a little bit about, what have you done? What do you see happening? And where do you see this roadmap going?
So it's actually very early to say where the journey will eventually end up into. But I can tell you some of the trends that are sort of coming in. And one of the major trends here is advertising or marketing. And one of the reason why Metaverse aces when it comes to marketing with respect to, let's say, the predecessors is it gives you the kind of marketing that has never been seen before. Let's say like an interactive ad, like something that we did with Red Bull, like a player could go drink Red Bull and the avatar starts flying because Red Bull gives you wings. Or you can have Horlicks and your avatar now becomes taller, stronger, sharper. Or you can just spray an axe and other avatars magnetically get attracted to you. That's interactive ads. Then there is immersive ads, something like Ferrari did with Fortnite. They launched the actual car with exact dimension, with exact performance in Fortnite. And allowed people to drive them before it actually launched a year after. And that boosted their sales by 25%. Then there is the gaming ad. And this is something that we did with KFC, where you collected their fresh buns, their fresh lettuce, veggies, patties, and put them all together, and you win a KFC Whopper.
So it's really an experience, right?
That's an experience, yes.
Yeah. I can tell you this Red Bull Gets You Wings is one of my son's favorites, right?
Yeah.
Every single time he sees a Red Bull man, I'm saying, Daddy, you're going to get wings now. And Red Bull's invited me to a seminar to speak around Red Bull Gives You Wings because they want me to capture their journey. So it's kind of, resonates a lot with me. But super worker, right? You've worked with so many brands across the board. Where do you think is the challenge in convincing brands to do this?
The challenge is that now, most of the people see Metaverse like, let's say, they would compare it to YouTube, right? And they would say that if I put my X amount of money, will I get Y amount of views?
The impressions and the
impressions, the conversions and all. But now I'll be frank that Metaverse loses out to YouTube and let's say Instagram and all of that when it comes to views, but where it wins over them is the session time.
Experience also.
It's experience
the
and
UX
also session time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you look at, let's say, the session time of Fortnite, which is around 164 minutes per user per week, and compare that to YouTube, which is somewhere around 45 minutes, Facebook is around 21 minutes, that is where you ace, where you can spend more time with the user and understand the user and hence convert the user. And that's how brands need to see this, and they're coming around. I would say that.
Interesting. Let's go to Anish, right? Anish, you guys are doing a lot of work around AI and Metaverse and creating this entire piece in Oman, right? where do you really think is, you know, the intersection between the real world, the human mind, the emotional mind, because you're talking about celebrities and you're talking about, you know, really giving them a piece of land and physical assets. So how are you bringing emotions into this entire story?
See, for the emotions, I would say, you know, if you're a die-hard fan of any celebrity, the emotion comes automatically. And how we are coping up with this is that, you know, we are building an in-house AI system which takes the data from all the social media and actually integrates that what the user is thinking about. And just to give you an example, I mean, you know, when we were creating this entire experience, we did a dipstick with one of our user group. We actually were able to capture that one of our employee was into depression. You know, and this is where we feel that, you know, integrating this AI and metaverse and coming together can actually cure a lot of depression which these youngsters are into today. So, you know, I see a huge future in metaverse, integrating the AI and human behavior and reading their minds.
No, I agree with you. I think it's just that, you know, there's that line of privacy that we need to draw on how much we should or shouldn't know of people's mental health. And I think, you know, while we do some things good, eventually technology takes over and does, you know, enough and equal harm. But the entire principle of identity in Web3, and I think Ayush, you spoke a lot about that, has been really, really interesting. I can tell you that the platform that we built called Koto, we do facial recognition for women so that we make sure that only women enter the platform. And because it's a safe space for women, the #1 community without any big influencer being behind that community is Let's Talk Mental Health, right? And that is true. And when women can openly come and talk about being gaslit across society, gaslit across, you know, their homes and around their office spaces and so on and so forth. And it is really disheartening to see the state of mental health for a lot of people in the society, right? And
exactly.
And you know, we have a lot of real-time psychologists in the community who can help people or talk to people and talk to women around these issues. But it's still their willingness to, one, come onto the platform, come into the safe space and join the community and then decide whether they want to be under a real name or a pseudonym, but own their own identity and then have these conversations, which I think is extremely critical in the Web3 space. Ayush, let me come to you because you picked this issue of identity. And we've been exploring a lot around ZK, right? Zero knowledge proof, and we're building this with Polygon on our own platform. So talk to me a little bit about, are you thinking about that? Is there a roadmap around ZK? And do you think identity is key around and peer-to-peer video?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very interesting point because we are also chatting with Suraj Polygon ID. We are also doing some interesting work with them where now what will happen is that the problem right now in terms of identity, that means how do you log in to this Web3 world? That means it's a key. It's a key where you just put in that key into and then only you can enter the applications of the Web3 world. That's it. And the problem with those identity, the wallets are that in your wallet there is identity, but there is also money. That means you also can hold money in that wallet. I can also do an identity with that. Now the problem with that approach is that people are afraid to sign. That's where you sign, that's like you log in, you sign via these wallets. The problem with that is that you have money in that and you're afraid of signing into a lot of these applications. And that's where something like ZK sign-ins come in, where now you don't have to sign again and again, and it doesn't basically touch your assets. It doesn't touch what money you have in your wallets. So this is what we are doing at Huddle One as well. We are using something called as Civic. We are using something called as Polygon ID. We are using something called as, we're using our own account abstractions, where now you can just log in a very easy format. But we give them an option. We say that, hey, you can log in, you can do a guest login as well. It's not that you need to go and log in via Polygon ID, because it requires an educational drip campaign. You need to show them that how easy it is and stuff like that, and it's all about UX.
I think education is going to be really key on Web3. I think, Kapil, we were talking about that a while ago, that I think we as an industry, as players together, as individuals, everybody will have to make an effort in any industry to grow. I think education becomes the key cornerstone Actually, I believe the starting point of what you would end up creating for yourself. Kapil, talk to me a little bit about, building online communities, right? You spoke about how community is key in this play, right? And obviously gaming is a lot around community. So talk to me a little bit about what are the best strategies for building online gaming, and how are you contributing to that, and where do you think that will lead to?
So one of the projects that we are doing internally, we are calling it temporarily MetaZone right now. It's a platform where game developers and metaverse experience developers and artists come together. We are going to provide them a platform. They connect with each other. They exchange learnings, and we are going to run hackathons around it. We are going to bring in experts who teach them how to create, how to build, how to participate, and like the whole education angle to, about how to kind of participate in the whole economy, and support them in game designing, etc., etc., etc. Basically, hand-holding them from creating their first art to building an entire game, and the whole project management aspect as well. Once they have built any game, we help them with fundraisers, we take them to brands, we help them with the entire global community support as well. So this is entirely based around community. We have built a team dedicatedly to build a community around it, because one feeds off the another. That's what we really believe in. Like, if today I am a new artist, I want to come on this platform, I just know about building, let's say, if I'm building a Ramayana metaverse, I'm an artist who can be good at just creating assets. But what do I do with that asset? How do I participate in the larger picture? How do I kind of participate in building the Ramayana metaverse, right? That's where if somebody else knows how the ecosystem works, come together, you work together, and you kind of take it from there.
I love Come Together. That's really what we are called. Come Together is my company.
Okay.
It's called Koto. And we do believe in the power of community, right?
Yeah.
We built this whole platform as a safe space for women, but as a community platform, because we realized that I think, the world of internet has to move from one to many to many to many, right?
Yeah.
And that many to many, and it's incredible. Like, we are about 8 weeks old, but the kind of conversations that we see in communities are so much more enriching than, on social media, because people can come and talk to each other, right? There is a community admin, but that community admin is just a facilitator. People solve for each other themselves. You don't really need one person to solve for everybody's problems or to respond to everybody. It's just everybody responds to everybody. And I mean, we started from family groups, right? And somebody asked me, so how do you treat communities? So I said, think of this as a party. There is a person who's hosting the party. The infrastructure of the party is hosted by Lalit. Somebody enters the room, right? And the host says hello and then introduces them to other people in the party. And then everybody starts talking to everybody in the party rather than that one host talking to everybody in the party. And that's really the difference between, community and a monologue is. And it's increasingly important to move away from a monologue into community. Yeah. So I'm so happy that you're doing that. And I think more and more such multifaceted communities could really change the face of one Web3, but also internet as a whole. Yeah. Gaurav, talk to me a little bit about, you've done so many experiments around sports collectibles and sports IP, and you've been into this for so long. There is also an element of using blockchain to prevent revenue leakage, piracy, real ownership, and so on and so forth, because it's all ingrained on the chain.
Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about what are those use cases and how are you seeing that come alive?
Well, the old world I came from, the mobile and the OTT space, they had a lot of revenue leakage. But in Web3, that's an inherent feature. Because it uses blockchain, it's very secure because it's A, immutable, B, it is token-based and decentralized, and it's also based on smart contracts. When it comes to smart contracts, it executes the whole thing based on a certain logic. It's not on human intervention alone. It's not on one hierarchical, pyramid kind of a decision making, but it self-triggers certain decisions. So that is much better than a watermarking, and that's much better than any DRM solution I know of. So these are can be imported to all metaverse ecosystems, and actually it's not imported; it's already there. These are inherent features of the blockchain.
Yeah, and really, I mean, I think the only last aspect is that if I go and put this content on the chain, the tracing that used to happen in legal contracts where you would know where somebody really owned it, that's a bit of a challenge that you need to solve.
Absolutely, because I see that's in fact a buzz of the topic even today. OpenSea, a big platform just released yesterday that they're stopping royalties. This is a big thing, you know. You cannot stop royalties because that's the IP, for the IP to decide. And because blockchain, you know, gives you the flexibility of, you know, tracing each primary and secondary and so on in the whole, you know, sale mechanism. It's not like that when you do any other form of content. You just forward it to someone or you just send it. There is no traceability inside the content itself. But here, you can trace it to the nth extent.
I'm going to actually, you know, close this up with Kapil. You know, NFTs are a big deal in the gaming business, right? Wrap this up with telling me about your experience around NFTs, what's the future, and talk to us a little bit about regulation. We haven't spoken about regulation on this panel. I'm constantly being barged by people around, you know. So we've done these big token contracts with large creators, with influencer agencies and so on and so forth. And their big question is, hey, you know, okay, you're going to list this token, but what's going to happen around regulation, around ownership, around taxation, and so on and so forth. So how are you dealing with this, and what do you think is going to be the future around that?
So starting with NFTs, right? NFTs, I think Krishnan talked about the whole, the way the game is changing around it. I love the point that you raised, Krishnan, about how the experience is being increased, how consumers who are spending time on Metaverse, they are more engaged than when they spend time on any other social media platform. And one of the core reasons is one, the whole, you know, the kind of stuff that you can do, the more engaging stuff that you can do in any Metaverse platform. And second is the ownership. They feel that, okay, I own a piece of this environment. I own a piece of this ecosystem. When you, as an employee versus a shareholder, right? You worked like 3 times more when you are a shareholder. The same logic comes in. And what is that share? It's NFT in the digital world. In any Metaverse that you operate in or in a game that you are playing, if you own a piece of land, if you own a piece of asset, that's, you know, very, very simply put, that's NFTs. You can invest in it, you can play with that character, mature it, increase the value of that character, which you can later transport to any other game, any other Metaverse land, any other Metaverse experience, or sell it for that matter, right? So it's just about like, because like most of the people here are like from the entrepreneurial background, just imagine like you have your own startup, you do every work to kind of grow it, the value increases, and when the time for exit comes or anything, you kind of make a lot of money from that, right? That's like, simply put, that's NFT at the end of that day.
You know, he made a point, who wants to own a monkey for $1 million or $1 billion? But the fact is, there are people who are buying monkeys, and many more
because
monkeys.
what that monkey gives you, that monkey gives you the access to a lot of...
Now you can imagine that, you know, instead of monkey, you actually have a song from Lata Mangeshkar, which is an NFT for you.
There will be, and you know, the whole point of NFTs, and I don't want to end this with a ruckus debate, but the whole point of it is that it could be, what is valuable to you could be very different to somebody else on the panel.
They create an IP out of both types.
And the average age on this panel is you know, quite quite wide, so it could be very, very different for different people. I'm going to take the last few minutes for any questions. It's a full house in the room, so I think there are going to be a lot of people asking questions around the Metaverse, Web3, fungible tokens, non-fungible tokens, participative ownership. And I think a lot of the panelists have made some very relevant, pertinent points. So feel free to ask questions. It's your chance to know a little bit more about what's impending around the Web3 world, and we'd be happy to answer. Anyone? Any questions? Yeah, go ahead. No. Lawyers are most important. I was wrapping up with regulation, right?
Exactly. So as we taking from what you already said, right? So we have now the Digital India Act coming. There's a lot of uncertainty about crypto tokens, etc. What is the law surrounding around it, right? Do you think all this uncertainty about the law with respect to generally digital businesses in India, has that led to slower growth of the metaverse and maybe adoption of Web3? Generally?
Actually, I'll give you an example, right? And I'm really old. So I come from, you know, television broadcast, and then came into digital, and then came into Web3. And possibly, you know, you weren't born then, but cable and satellite came into India, and cable television wasn't governed by the Indian Cable Act, right? But it just inorganically grew, and everybody got a dish, and there was a local cable wala. He was throwing wires at people, and people were getting cable connections in their households, right? Actually, all of that happened because there wasn't any law. If you asked every cable operator to go get a license and then start to keep, an entire log around who's buying the cable connection, what is he paying, add GST to that, create bills, invoices, build an entire ecosystem, I don't think entrepreneurship would have really been so fledgling as it was when cable and satellite came into India. Every sector really starts with being almost unorganized, disorganized. It gives them time to experiment, figure out what is really right or wrong, and then eventually the government comes in and starts to build some framework around it. I think there are so many people working on the metaverse, there's so many people working around NFTs and tokens because there isn't any hard and fast regulation just now. You can experiment, you can innovate, you can figure out many, many use cases, and because there isn't any law, you're willing to put your hand up and try something. When there will be law, you will be forced to go through, the SEC equivalents like SEBI, trying to get your token, into buckets of it is a security token or a utility token or a non-fungible token or so on and so forth. And then go through expensive lawyers like you, who you will have to pay fees to. You will have to go through merchant bankers and others who will have their own, cut to be made, and then the ecosystem becomes too expensive to do any experimentation. So I think it's good the way it is. It will find its own water. There will be regulation, and then there will be lawyers, and then there will be bankers. And that, I hope you take it in the right spirit. Anybody else?
Okay, so I am from Kapil, one of the Metaverse companies itself. Thank you.
It's working. Go on.
Okay, so you asked me about what will people do with the monkeys. First of all, okay, I own a Lata Mangeshkar song. What do I do with that? First of all. Two, it's purely a trading thing. Probably I'm one of those people who have created NFTs for Kevin Peterson, for Chris Gale, Rahul Dravid and all. Harsha Bhogle has recently invested in a very large NFT-based marketplace where people would get a signed copy of their cricket bat from their favorite cricketer once they buy the NFTs. That's a physical plus digital. So my question is, apart from just being an investment thing, just like what we do with the real estate in the real world, we buy own lands or we buy the NFTs, that's purely for an investment purpose. Apart from being recognized, obviously marketing is always a part of it. So what other use cases do you think from buying a song of Lata Mangeshkar in Metaverse?
Actually, it's just precious, right? What is precious has value. Whether it's art, whether it's, a land on Barakhamba Road, because, land may be the same in Meerut or in Barakhamba Road, but Barakhamba Road is precious, right? So it's the supply and demand thing, and that's why you own it. Whether you sell it or whether you just keep it for a lifetime depends on your capacity to hold the asset. But the more demand, the less supply, the more the value.
And in sports, for example, they had this baseball cards. They collected it, primitively. Not now. It's just much before blockchain even came. So that industry was always there, memorabilia and collectibles. So there's one reason for that. And the second is Rihanna, the singer, she recently took out an NFT. And that NFT gives you royalties. It spreads out the royalty to a small group of DAO.
Correct. A lot of the crowdsourced NFTs also give you a part, like he said, in the future earnings of that piece. And that's something like, it's an NFT, right? You put it out there and it'll get you something.
Yeah,
but
and
you started this debate, so you must finish it.
Like, in entertainment, what we are doing is, this is where the mining comes in place. Like today, if you own a song, and that song is being taken by, say, one of the most upcoming movie of the Bollywood, you start getting royalties out of it. This is what NFT is all about. A monkey, yes, I could understand that there might be an emotion, but here it's a pride, plus there's a royalty forever. So this is what a real use case is going to be.
Right, big brands such as Spotify, they're all in Metaverse. With songs.
I'm going to have Kapil wrap this up because we have a minute to go and I can see the next set of panelists are already in. But so Kapil.
So just to add on, because you mentioned what apart from the investment angle could be the utility, right? So there's a debate that I was having with somebody very senior, and he's a very fascinated collector of art. He has like MF Hussain and all those stuff, right? And he was like, why are people buying these expensive NFTs? So my question was, why are you buying this expensive art for your house?
It's just the
right?
same
Because
thing, yeah.
his concept was like, I like it. I like collecting. When guests come over, it's like it's a show off plus my own love for that matter, right? Now, shifting to the metaverse world, people are spending a lot of time in the digital world. So it matters to them how they are appearing in the digital world. So owning any digital asset, whether it is a Lata Mangeshkar song or any other art, gives them a sense of pride, sense of accomplishment that in my digital world, I'm an owner of this, I own this. So whoever comes in my digital world will know I own this, I have this digital persona. So apart from the investment angle, I thought I'll just touch upon that.
I may not be MF Hussain for market prediction, but I am the...
Thank you so much, yeah.
But then you buy skins also, for PUBG games, right?
No. Thank you, Krishnan. Thank you, Anish. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Kapil. Thank you, Ayush. It's been a great conversation. I think the one big thing that comes out is participative ownership, right? And tokens will lead to that. A lot of other themes like community come together. Also about using the metaverse to be able to build better user experiences. So all of you guys are doing some incredible work. Keep on doing it. Build for peer-to-peer. Build a decentralized world. And we're all going to be here to support you. Together, we can make sure that we educate the world around Web3 and take the next big step. So until the next time, thank you so much.
We'll take a quick picture also.